You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. I am your host, Juan Rivas. In today's episode, we have Jazmin Trujillo, who is an alum of the Trio Upward Bound program at Eastern New Mexico University-Roswell. Jazmin is on the podcast to talk about her educational experience, her time with the Trio Upward Bound program at Eastern New Mexico University in Perez, and what it meant for Trio to be joining her in her journey. So coming up in just a bit, Jazmin Trujillo. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Angelica Valdez, Jaded Electronics, TrioJoblist.com, and Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month goes a long way in supporting this podcast. If you own a business and would like to run an ad on our podcast, send us a message and we will get back with you for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account at Let's Talk Trio. Again, that handle is at Let's Talk Trio. Any amount is truly appreciated. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Jazmin Trujillo from the Eastern New Mexico University-Roswell Trio Upward Bound program. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is an alum of the Trio Talent Search program at Eastern New Mexico University-Roswell. She attended Eastern New Mexico University and attained a bachelor's degree in psychology, and she is currently working on her master's in counseling. Our guest held multiple roles in the Upward Bound program as a volunteer, teacher, and mentor to high school students. She currently serves as the agency director for AmberCare in Clovis, New Mexico. When she is not working, she likes to do some gardening with houseplants and is currently focused entirely on academics. Joining me on the podcast is Jazmin Trujillo. Jazmin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited.
I am so excited to have you here. I'm so excited for you to tell your Trio journey. And it looks like we had a little guest just a second ago.
Yes, here she is. This is
Daddy. Hi, baby. Oh, she's so cute.
She's my long-haired Chihuahua, and I got another one trying to jump on me. She's my weenie dog.
They want to be guest stars.
Oh my gosh, they are just spoiled, and they just want to be on my lap at all times, no matter what.
Oh, the other one, just as adorable. So it's so good to see you. How have you been?
I have been great. So incredibly busy. I feel like my life is just nonstop all the time, constantly doing something, trying to better myself and just keep moving. I feel like I'm constantly moving.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
So a bit of context for the audience. Jazmin and I, we both served the Trio Upward Bound program. Jazmin served as a dance instructor for many years ago. And while I was the coordinator there, Jazmin remained involved and gave so much to the Trio Upward Bound program. So Jazmin, please know that your efforts were so appreciated during our time at Upward Bound.
Thanks. I had a really good time doing that. I knew you were going to bring this part up because I was feeling nostalgic, and I was kind of reflecting back on just who I was in that part of my life. And it's so interesting how lack of experience can really comes out like in your actions and who you are as a human. Because at that time when I started teaching in Upward Bound, the summer program, I was almost the same age as the students. I was either I had just turned 18 or I was 19, and most of my students were like 17. So we were very, very close in age. And I feel like that they could relate to me in some way because I wasn't that far ahead of them. And I also think that on my part, and just how inexperience and honestly innocent naivety, I was just in this world where I am an authoritative figure the same age as the students. So that was a very interesting experience for sure. And my sister Jessica, I think she really helped kind of wiggle me in there because she was working in the office with you guys, I think at that time or a little prior to that. But just knowing that you guys gave me the opportunity, regardless of how young I was and how inexperienced I was, to be able to have that opportunity going from me as a student just a year before to now being an instructor was huge. It was huge, and a really great experience.
Absolutely. And to your credit, you took command of a classroom. So to your absolute credit, you had students following directions, following your lead. You're a naturally born leader, I think. And I think we saw that in you. We were very impressed with how you showed up to your interview, how prepared you were about lesson plans, and how prepared you were to receive students and meet them where they're at and teach them. So we were very impressed with the skills that you brought.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Because, man, I think I was just really nervous because I was so young. I was very, very young. And that was really one of my very first real jobs, honestly. And I'm sure we'll probably get into it later about when I started work study when I was with Upward Bound in Roswell. But that was technically my first job. And working the summer program, it just kind of going back to how inexperienced I was in real life workplaces, but still knowing that I had a job to do, but I could have fun while I was doing it,
Absolutely. So how has your life changed since then?
Since I was teaching, oh boy. Well, I think I taught a couple of years. The first one, I think I think I did Zumba first. And then maybe a year or two later, it gets a little foggy. I did the dance. And then after that was when I graduated. I think I graduated in 2015 with my bachelor in psychology. And after that, I actually moved to Roswell, and I worked there for a little bit. I got a really incredible opportunity. Literally 2 days after I graduated, I got a job offer from Tabosa in Roswell, and they work with individuals who are disabled or lower cognitive abilities, but they work to help integrate them back into the community. And I was able to be a service coordinator for a while for children, though, for the family infant toddler program of New Mexico. It's called the FIT program. So basically they receive different types of services from ages birth to 3. So they get physical therapy, speech therapy, I mean, you name it. So I came on as a family service coordinator, and that was very, very interesting. I think that was my real, that was probably my first taste of state work and state requirements, things like that. Like now you're getting into the serious stuff, you know?
Yeah, right, right.
So I did that for a while, and then I moved on to actually being a developmental specialist. So now instead of coordinating the services and pushing all of the paper behind the services, now I was the one performing the services. So I got to go into these families' homes, and if whatever the concern was with this child, I helped them learn to walk. I helped them learn to speak. You know, it's such, I can't even describe it how rewarding that was. Yeah. Especially because in our community there are so many just disserviced populations, and I had the ability to be able to help Spanish speaking families, and just knowing that they had someone that was there to help their child was awesome.
Fantastic. So I've had already so many interviews. You said before the show that you had listened to a couple of the episodes. I don't know if you heard any of the folks that were talking about the pandemic and how it affected them. And now that we're technically in a post-COVID world, even though we're not really, we're still kind of in flux with all that. What are some things that you learned about yourselves or about yourself, and something that you kind of picked up while in this COVID period?
Oh man, definitely. What's the word I'm looking for? Just trying to adapt. Just trying to adapt to our new world. At the time, well, after I finished working with kids, I moved on to a mental health setting with adults. And I still remember the day that we got the text to return to the office immediately.
Oh, yeah?
Because everyone was out in the field. I was with the client at the time. And, you know, I think I was helping him with his Social Security application. And I get this phone call from my AD, and she says, "We need you back now." Okay. Had no idea what was going on. And by that time, you know, you are kind of hearing in the news that things were, that this unknown virus was starting to spread. And then you had certain cases in the United States that were coming up. And once we got that text, I knew, I was like, oh man, this is serious. So then we moved from that to home-based. And at first it was really exciting, right? Because you think, oh, I can work from my house.
From home, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't gotta go to the office. I don't have to get up so early. And then that excitement kind of wore off.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it wore off. Yep, it wore off. And then it comes back and it hits you like a ton of bricks, because now you think, okay, my human interaction has taken a steep decline. And now I'm just by myself all day. So I was really trying to adapt the work that I was doing before to the work that I was doing now, and trying to help my clients really figure things out over the phone, because now I wasn't there in person to help them. So I think that was probably one of the most difficult parts.
Yeah. What was there a specific skill or something you learned, or did you sharpen old ones while in this COVID period of remote work?
I think I learned about routines and boundaries, because at first I really didn't know how to break my work life and my home life, because I was at home the whole time. So I made a huge mistake this time, or during that time, where I was working from my couch instead of having like a designated area to work at, because now my place of comfort and my place of relaxation was also my place of work. So I was spending hours and hours on my couch, and I couldn't switch my brain from work mode to relaxation mode when my husband came home from his job, you know. So I think that affected me quite a bit. I'm kind of a hybrid mode now, to where I work from home half the time and work in office the other half of the time. And I definitely I learned my lesson from the first time because it was really difficult. But now I have a designated area where it's my school place and it's my workplace. And I don't use it for any other reason than that. And I definitely don't take it into my living room or my bedroom. No, nothing. It stays in the office.
Wonderful. What's something that you do now that you weren't able to do during the pandemic? And has it been able to work it right back into your routine?
Something I was able to do now that I wasn't able to in the pandemic. Yeah, I think working office-based again. I think just being back in the office and being around other people and having that human interaction. But it's definitely been a positive for me, because I never thought I'd be so excited to go back to work in an office after that.
Right on. What is a personal goal that you have set for yourself for 2023 that you have accomplished, and a goal that you have yet to accomplish?
Oh, internship. So with my counseling program, I have to, it's like I need to basically log 300 hours of direct a mix of indirect and direct client care. So I was very, very nervous about that, because I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to hold a full-time job and intern somewhere? You know, how am I going to juggle that? But now that I'm doing it, I've really adapted to that schedule, and it's honestly easier than I thought it was going to be. Like, I think I was just getting in my own head. So that was one goal that I have already started, was my internship. And a goal that I haven't met yet, I think, is going to be the completion of my internship, but also graduation. So this is kind of the last step. Once you finish internship, you take your comprehensive exam and you graduate.
Wow.
So fingers crossed I can graduate in December. There's like some issues going on right now. I don't know if I need to push it to May. There was a random class that I had scheduled for the summer that was no longer offered in the summer. So now I have that one straggler that I need to complete before I graduate. So either they're going to let me do it in the fall, or I'll have to take it in the spring. It's kind of a toss up whether I'll graduate in December or May.
But at least you're graduating.
I know I'm graduating. That's all that matters. I am not in a rush. The time's going to pass regardless. So I just want to get it done.
Wonderful. So Jazmin, this is the part of the podcast where we're going to talk about your past and your upbringing. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and what was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I was actually born in Delicias, Chihuahua. My family moved to the United States when I was 2 years old. And it's funny you mentioned earlier that I had the presence of a leader, because my mom says that as I was growing up, I was very in your face. I'm the boss. As a kid.
How does Jessica feel about that?
I'm the boss. Jessica was the complete opposite. Jessica was afraid to talk to people. Like terrified to talk to people. And not me. I mean, my mom says that she actually has me on video doing this, but I didn't know a lick of English, but I pretended like I did.
Oh, so you faked it till you make it.
I was just talking gibberish.
Okay.
But to me, I was having a full-on conversation with my dad. So that was fun.
Yeah.
So I got here when I was 2 years old, got into Head Start when I was 3.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I knew that we were different. And we are in a community. Well, I grew up in a community that was heavily Hispanic, but we were different. We immigrated from Mexico. A lot of the families around me had lived there their whole lives, and we didn't. So being a kid, and you don't really keen in on those things, but when you do, they're kind of difficult to ignore. And I knew that my parents really had big plans for us, and I didn't want to disappoint them. And to my parents, they were very hard on us academically. I mean, I had to be the honor roll straight A student. I had to be. Anything under that was going to be disappointing. And I didn't want to do that. So I've always just been very competitive academically, and just trying to be the best and get the best grades that I could, because my parents never even let me have a job. I would ask to have a job, and my dad would say, no, school is your job. And you're going to go to school, and you're going to go to college, and you're going to get a degree, and you're going to be somebody.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until maybe after about I turned 18, I really started to realize what he meant by that, because now I'm in the real world, and I'm living it. I'm living in this world where now I'm responsible for myself, and what I had going for me was my degree, and I knew that was going to be I made it, and I knew that that's what was going to make my parents proud, because it's just a very, very typical immigrant first generation college student story. You're one of the first to graduate, you're one of the first to succeed in a collegiate setting, and it's really humbling knowing where you came from. So that's always been kind of like a piece of me that makes me want to keep going. And I keep telling myself, I'm going to be the first doctor in my family. I'm going to do it. That's
awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, that's really it. Just growing up in a very very traditional Mexican household, and knowing that I had to make it, because my parents didn't sacrifice their entire lives for me to not make it.
Because of that, is school something that you naturally gravitated toward, or school something that you really liked? Or did you feel that first gen pressure of like, I just have to do well? Doesn't matter what the subject is, I just have to do well in school.
Both, because I'm a great student. I am a professional student, and school, my husband says this to me all the time, but school just comes very naturally to me. But I feel like I'm one of those people who's book smart, but my common sense ain't always there sometimes.
True hallmark of a learner.
We kind of even each other out in that way. Because yeah, sometimes I'll my process of thinking makes sense to me, but it might not make sense to him. And he looks at me and he says, how are you the smart one? So I knew school just came, it came naturally to me, even difficult things, honestly. But there was a lot of pressure to do well. And I think maybe that's why it came so naturally to me. I'm really not sure. But knowing that I was expected to do well and I had to perform, and then I realized I'm kind of good at this. So I'm just going to keep going as far as I can go. So yeah, it's definitely both. Yeah.
All right. Were there any subjects that you really, really honed in on, or subjects that you were really interested in?
I loved psych and I loved sociology. I was explaining this to my husband not too long ago that there's two types of data. You got qualitative data and you got quantitative data. I live for qualitative data. There's just so much room for interpretation and so much room where you can just interpret the data in a way that makes sense. But quantitative data, it's all numbers and formulas and just facts, hard facts, right? So I definitely did better in subjects where like psych and sociology, where there's a lot of interpretation, versus math and biology, where it's hard facts. And I just did not do well when I say that school came naturally to me, I mean the subjects that I liked, the subjects I liked.
Right.
Because math and science, oh man, my brain just couldn't process them, which is interesting because Jessica is a math major or was a math major. She got her bachelor's in mathematics and now she's getting her master's in analytics. So it's just, she's got the math brain. I do not.
You've got the creative interpretation side.
I can interpret things to make sense to me. But there's just like so many psychologists and sociologists that have already interpreted years and years of human behavior and like what dreams mean. You know what I mean? Just be an example, but those are definitely the subjects that I gravitated to the most.
Right on. How would your family describe you when you were young?
Bossy, probably. Bossy. Probably intelligent. My dad says that to me all the time. Like he would tell me, eras bien lista. Eras bien lista. Yeah. He was just like, you were smart. You were smart. And I think that has, confident, I would say is another one. And I think that those traits have kind of evolved into my adulthood because I'm very humbled. Like when I talk about like my upbringing and things that I'm good at, I say it with a confident voice because I feel like when you're a woman and you're a Latina, maybe there's just more hurdles for us to get over. So I have to be confident. If I'm going to be taken seriously, I have to be confident. But at the same time, I feel very humbled to be able to be confident, because that by itself is very difficult.
Absolutely.
Is very difficult in the real world. So I always have to just remind myself to be humble first.
So I'm going to put you kind of on the spot again. Outside of school, did you have a lot of interests growing up?
Dang, I feel really lame.
No, come on.
So lame.
No, that you've had
what are my hobbies? What did I like? I'm like, what did I like? I'm gonna be honest with you. I love TV.
Hey, a lot of folks have listed TV as one of their favorite things to do.
It is. I think it's just one of those things where when I have a free second and I just want to decompress my mind and just aimlessly watch something on TV, because my job is very taxing. My schooling is very taxing. So when I just want to decompress, honestly, like I just put on a good comfort show and just lay down and do absolutely nothing.
Okay, putting you on the spot. What is the comfort show that you like? What's your go-to?
I'm rewatching Grey's Anatomy again. I've rewatched all of the seasons. Like, I'm not kidding you, like 6 times, but every time it's like I'm watching it. Oh, it's like I'm watching it for the first time all over again. That, and true crime documentaries.
Oh, okay.
True crime podcasts. Love them.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Grey's Anatomy, I will say, I'm surprised it has lasted this long. It's one of the longest running TV shows out there, right? It's like season 25, and it's still
I'm
not done.
gonna lie though, like it should have ended like 6 seasons ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it should have ended like a while back. I stopped watching it. I haven't watched the newest seasons because my comfort is like the first 15
the first 15 seasons. Okay,
the
that
first
makes sense.
15 seasons. After that, I lose interest. I lose interest.
Right on. What do you remember about middle school, and what was that experience like for you?
I remember middle school kind of in a negative light, to be honest.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, and I mean, it just kind of goes back to being confident and having a voice, because I came from a very small school and my class was mostly boys. So it was hard for a girl to get her voice heard. So those years, I remember specifically one year, every class has their president, right? And so it was between me and one of the boys. And of course, all of the boys voted for the boy. And that hurt me so bad. I'm like, I was like 12. I was a 12-year-old sixth grader. And I'm like, I would be a great president. What do 12-year-old sixth grade presidents do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I knew I'd make a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it was just little things like that where your voice just gets cut out because you're a girl and no one wants to listen to a girl, you know? So I think that's where my character development really started. And
wow.
I knew my voice had to be heard at some point.
I like how you're doing this kind of introspective reflection and sharing like where the origin started with you.
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to think about it. I read a lot of psych books. So
yeah.
I'm just like, if I was a villain, this would be my origin story. This would be my origin story.
I've had to, and I'll be honest with you, like I've had to learn a lot about myself these last 3-4 years, and having to take apart a lot of the things that I do. Like, why do I do that? Oh, that's why I do that. So totally understandable and totally relate. My next question to you is, did you develop any interest while in middle school in extracurricular activities like band, choir, sports, clubs? Obviously, you ran for president, and even though all the boys voted for the male president, unfortunately, did you develop any other interests outside of that?
Yeah, I actually started playing volleyball, and I loved volleyball. I think that was probably my favorite sport, and I played that all throughout high school. And I did some intramurals in college too. And granted, for coming from a small school, I wasn't bad, but I probably wouldn't make it on a college team if I tried. But also I'm like 5 feet tall, and I would probably only be able to play back row in a volleyball match. But in that small school, I wasn't bad. I made all district a couple of times. But granted, that just goes back, like it was all district in a district of other small schools. So I never played against like big high schools or anything. I really don't know how I would have performed. Maybe I would have just blended into the average, team players. I probably wouldn't be a bench warmer, but I probably wouldn't be a starter either. But it was fun. I really enjoyed volleyball. I really enjoyed softball too. I played like 2-3 years in high school. It was one of the sports that our school actually acquired later into my high school career, because we didn't have those before. We didn't have softball or baseball, and they started it. So we were the very first ever softball team.
Wow.
In that school. I don't know if they still have it, probably not, but yeah, so that was fun. I wasn't very good, but I had a lot of fun doing it.
That's what matters, if you had fun, right?
Yeah.
Is this around the time in middle school that you found out about Trio Talent Search, or when did you find out about Trio Talent Search?
It is actually my 8th grade year. Well, no. So my seventh grade year, sixth grade year. I think I was in the sixth grade. We joined a trio program called Gear Up.
Oh, right. The Gear Up programs.
Yeah. So I was actually in Gear Up first.
Okay.
And it was kind of cool because that program followed my class and the class ahead of me all throughout middle school. So it was just our two classes.
Right.
So I was in the sixth grade, so it followed me all the way to my eighth grade year. And that's where I met quite a few people. And that was really fun. The Gear Up program was really fun. They did a summer program kind of similar to what Upward Bound does, just not as academically focused, I would say. It was more so just like fun classes, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my first experience with Trio. And then Jessica started going to Upward Bound, and I didn't really know a lot about it. I just knew that every other Saturday I rode with my mom to drop her off at the bus. And that was really all I knew about it until I got to about eighth grade. And then that's when it was, okay, well, now it's going to be your turn. Because by that point, Jessica had graduated and I knew a little bit more about it after that. And it was just always kind of expected. It wasn't, I wonder if I'm going to do Upward Bound. No, it was, I'm going to do it. I just don't know when. And at the time, they only allowed freshmen to like start doing the summer courses and the Saturday classes. But I think because they liked Jessica so much, the director and I'm assuming was the assistant director. I honestly don't remember her title. Maybe she was the coordinator, but they interviewed me with my mom to see if we could get me in the summer before I started my freshman year. So it was like post eighth grade, pre-freshman summer. And they let me do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had to like, if there was an interview, I don't remember what else there was involved, but I guess maybe to see if, I don't know, if maybe I was at the level of a freshman before. I really don't know, but I do remember that happening. And so then I started going to Upward Bound after that, and that was so cool. I had never experienced anything like that ever. That first summer was really difficult because you're trying to adapt and getting to know all of these strangers around you, because now you're going to these courses with people from other schools. And that was a little difficult for me because I didn't know anybody at first. But then, you start getting to know people and making friends, and then the hard part starts. Then you actually have to pass the class.
Right. So then it's fair to say it was Gear Up, then Upward Bound?
Yes.
Wow. As you entered into high school, what do you remember most about, that first year in high school for you?
I honestly don't remember a whole lot of my freshman year. It all just kind of blurs together. But I do remember specifically my freshman year of high school. I took a guitar class.
Ooh,
so I learned,
fancy.
So I learned how to read music. And I learned how to play scales and things like that. So that was pretty fun. I played some guitar in and out. I can still probably do it. If I watch someone play, I could probably follow them. But that's about as far as my guitar skills go.
So it sounds like some extracurriculars that you picked up, did any of the extracurriculars from middle school carry over?
Definitely volleyball. Volleyball stuck with me all throughout. And that was one of the things where I knew that even if we were bad at it, I was still going to have fun because I just had such a great time playing volleyball. It was awesome.
Talk to us about your experience in high school. What did you like most about it? And what are things that were not part of your priority?
I think just what I liked most about it, I think probably finding myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like when, those are your formative years, right? Like those are
Right.
the years where you kind of find what your likes are and what your dislikes are. So there was a lot of ups and downs in high school for me, and that's not a unique experience. Everyone goes through their ups and downs in high school. You got, your first heartbreak, and things of that nature. So when I think
Right.
back to high school, I think about all of the ups and downs that I went through emotionally, and I guess how I overcame them and where I am now compared to how I was feeling then. But definitely finding myself, I think, was probably the best thing that came out of that. I really found my music interests and just my style, I guess. I was that emo kid. I found all this emo music, and I really got into rock and roll, and that hasn't changed. If anything, it's just evolved
It's
from there.
I was gonna
But
say
that's where
intensified and evolved,
it
maybe.
started. Yeah. Yeah. Here I am. I'm this little emo millennial. Like I'm still emo on the inside. Still emo on the inside. But now
Absolutely.
I have to dress like a professional, but on the inside,
You're still very much emo.
I'm still very
The
much
dark
emo.
heart and everything.
Will always be.
Always.
Always.
So, Jasmine, for many high school students, colleges becomes part of that conversation, usually middle of the high school, early on in high school. They really contemplate whether or not they want to attend college, or they typically have an extensive list of colleges. Did you and your family think about college in that manner?
Um, with Jessica, she was kind of the guinea pig because,
Mm,
like I was saying earlier, college wasn't a choice, it was an
mhm.
expectation
Right,
for us.
right.
So it wasn't a matter of whether I was going to do it or not, it was when I was going to do it. And
Gotcha.
so with Jessica, I don't remember what colleges that she applied to, but she ended up going to ENMU in Portales. And so now that she had been established there, it kind of became an unspoken thing where I was going to go there too.
I see. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she had kind of established that already and was the guinea pig for all of that, FAFSA, all of that stuff. But for me, I really didn't know. I knew where I was going to go because that's probably where I was going to end up anyway. But
Right.
I did apply to other places. I applied at NMSU, UNM. I can't remember if I applied to Texas Tech or not. I think I did. No, I don't think I did. I think I thought about applying there, but I knew realistically I wasn't going to go to a Texas school. So why was I going to waste my time?
I
Yeah, I
see.
thought about doing it, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I got into all three. I got into UNM, NMSU, and ENMU,
Hmm.
but I knew where I was going to go. So also, I was on the presidential scholarship. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
I was on a full ride. My bachelor's degree was a full ride. So at the time, they had, I think the scholarship has changed a little bit since then, but at the time it was the lottery scholarship. So whatever wasn't paid from the lottery was paid out from the presidential scholarship. So I
Wow.
was set. I was pretty much set. So I knew where I was going to go.
Absolutely. So in what ways did Trio Upward Bound help you in this process for you?
I think definitely with work study, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that you could go to school and work at the college at the same time. So that was huge. I did my first work study at ENMUR, and I worked in the media center there for a whole summer. And
Hmm.
from there, when I started going to ENMU, I started working at the dorms. I worked at a couple of different dorms there for a while, and that was a big piece of experience for me that I had never had before. Like when I tell you my parents never let me have a job, it was so bad that my first day at the media center, I didn't know that jobs had shifts. It's like you work from 10 to 2. That's your shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I get there and I do everything that I'm asked to do. And it was like noon or something like that. And I'm thinking, so do I go home now?
And they're like, no,
I asked my boss, so can I go home? And he's like, no. you have 2 hours left of shift. That's how inexperienced I was. And I just had no common sense for the workplace. My brain was just student brain and student brain only.
Right.
Because when you finish the homework, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Not with work, apparently. That's not how careers work.
For a lot of first generation students and first generation professionals, that can be an often difficult thing to navigate about not only school, but when you work inside of school, and then when you graduate, working post for somebody else as a professional. Like, am I allowed? Do I work through my lunch hour, or do I go to lunch? That's kind of like a weird thing to have to ask and to follow up on. Absolutely.
100%. So now with that knowledge, right, that you have to finish your full shift. Then when I started at Eastern in Portales, I finished full shifts. I was like, oh, I have to be here from 6 to 9. I'm going to be here from 6 to 9.
Right. So
that was a big piece of experience that I got from Upward Bound for sure. Was just that first taste of work study.
Yeah.
And a job. a job.
That's awesome. Talk to us about the moment you graduated from high school. What was that moment like for you and for your family?
Oh, it was awesome. My class was really small. I think we graduated with 9. I think there were 9 of us. So that was cool. I graduated valedictorian, but I'm not really sure if that means a lot when there's 9 people. So that was cool. I got to make a speech. And
that's cool. Yeah, but still high honors.
Yeah, right. I was like,
I would say so.
4.0, I guess. So this works out. And I got to make a speech at graduation, and I got to thank my parents. And I said my speech in English and then later in Spanish, because what's the point of thanking your parents if your mom can't understand what you're saying?
Right.
So I did it in both languages, and that was really honoring to do.
Very good.
For them.
That's awesome. Now, I know we already went over this, but you decided to ultimately to attend Eastern New Mexico University. Was there a particular draw to the university, or was it just because family expected you to go?
Yeah, the latter. my family expected me to go, I think. And it wasn't ever said. Like, my parents never told me, you don't have a choice, this is where you're going to go, and that's that. It was just kind of unspoken because Jessica was already there. I had a scholarship to go there. So it was just kind of, it just kind of fell into place that way.
Right on. Talk to us about the moment you set foot on campus at Eastern. What did that feel like for you?
It felt so surreal. I had the biggest culture shock of my life.
Really?
I'm going from a classroom of 9 people to a classroom of 30.
Oh,
and
yeah.
In big campuses, 30 isn't that big. But to me, who had only been with 9 people my entire life, that was huge. It was huge. And it was definitely a culture shock, and it was definitely humbling too, because I'm coming from a small school where I'm valedictorian, I'm a 4.0 student. I think that I'm smart. And then I go to college and I meet smart people. And when I say smart, I'm like, holy crap. I definitely felt super humbled.
Mm-hmm.
Because now
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to people where I'm like, you're not just smart, like you're intelligent. You are just wow.
Next
I
level
thought I
thinkers.
was
Yeah.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I thought I was smart. I got humbled real quick. And not in a bad way. I wouldn't say it wasn't a bad way, because you know what they say, like if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
That was probably my first taste of that in real life. And it was awesome. And it was awesome because then that's when I realized, like, there's a whole world of people out there who know way more than me, and I can learn from them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing for me, going to school and meeting all of these people. I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. Here I am in a place where I can start learning, really learning.
Absolutely. Right. For you, how did you, and this is kind of an off-script question, how did you counter or battle or do away with, if at all, the imposter syndrome that you might have felt as a first-generation student attending college?
To be honest with you, I didn't really feel imposter syndrome.
Okay.
In school. The first time I felt imposter syndrome was actually when I started working at my current job.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll get to that here in just a moment then.
Okay.
Did you know what program or degree you really wanted to dive into when you first came into ENMU?
I knew I wanted to do some kind of I knew I wanted to either do sociology or psych.
Sociology or psych.
I took an intro to psych and an intro to sociology my senior year of high school. We got to do like dual credit through the campus at ENMUR. And I loved it. I loved it so much. So my first year, I didn't declare until I was a sophomore, but I had a really big interest in psych and sociology. So I thought that I was going to head that way. But I didn't declare psych or sociology. I declared biology pre-med.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I thought, you know who makes a lot of money? Doctors.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to be a doctor.
Okay.
And that's when I found out. Remember how I was telling you earlier that science and math and anything quantitative, I just don't do well in. I took a biology course my first semester and a chemistry course, and I knew immediately, this ain't for me. This ain't
gotcha.
This is not gonna work. This is not gonna work.
I hear you.
And I was like, man, I don't know what. I was chasing money. That's what I was doing. I was like, doctors make a lot of money, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna declare pre-med, and that's what I'm gonna do. And my brain just goes, no. Oh, baby, no. So then I switched my major to psychology, and I just felt so much better.
All right. And that's what it's supposed to feel, right? Like when you declare into a major, it's supposed to feel like home. It's supposed to feel like a good connection with it.
Exactly. You shouldn't hate your major.
Absolutely. I stress that with my students when I talk to them sometimes. Is like, you have to feel a connection with the major. You have to feel like you're at home. Right.
100%.
So you majored in psychology. Was there a particular reason why you chose psychology as your major?
I just had such a big interest on mental illnesses. The one that struck me the most was schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. I actually did a research project on it where I just like read a bunch of different studies, and I ended up kind of crossing over from schizoaffective disorder into at the time it was called multiple personality disorder. And I started reading some of that, and it just something about mental disorders just fascinated me. there was just something about it that really got my attention. But not just that, but I understood the language and I understood the terminology, even though, like, granted, there was still a lot that I had to learn, but for the most part, I got what they were about, and in at least enough for me to be able to research it on my own time. So that was definitely what I leaned into the most.
Right on. My next question to you is about the overall career path that you were thinking about at this point. Did it seem to you like you were following a particular career path for yourself, or do you feel like it was still kind of in evolution phase? Yeah, what was that like for you?
Honestly, once I had my mind made up that I was going to do psych, I just went full force. I went full force to do it, and I honestly didn't even meet my advisor. I set up my own degree plan, and I pretty much advised myself, honestly.
Wow.
I just picked what I needed for the degree plan, what was required, and then for my extracurriculars, I really just picked other courses. I think sociology was one for psych that was required, but then there was another one. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember what the name was. I think it was cognition. Cognition was one of those where you could choose to do, and that's the one where I learned the most. I think I loved that cognition course. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think cognition was a required class. I don't think it was an extracurricular, but it was the one that I learned from the most. But after that, after I graduated, I pretty much went straight into a development type job working with children. And then I got introduced to other disciplines like speech therapy and physical therapy, things like that. Things that I didn't even know existed, honestly. And that's kind of where my career path took a little bit of a detour, because I really started getting interested in speech and language pathology. And I thought, maybe I should do this instead, because I knew at some point I was going to go back for a master's degree. And at that point, I thought I could probably get my master's in communicative disorders to be a speech therapist. So I started it. But because I had graduated in psych, there was quite a few undergrad courses that I needed to take in order to get into a master's program for communicative disorders. And it took a whole year to do it, but I did them. And it was hard because, like I'm telling you, my brain doesn't like math and it doesn't like biology, but communicative disorders is a lot of biology and anatomy of the throat and the mouth and all of that. So as difficult as it was, I pushed myself to do it, and I did it. Good. Yeah. And then it came time to go back for my master's. So now I'm in a place where I have all of the educational requirements to apply for a master's degree in counseling or a master's degree in communicative disorders. So after I decided that speech therapy is what I was going to do, then I was back into this point like, well, do I want to do that? Yeah. Or am I just doing that because that's what career I'm in right now? Because it's speech therapy adjacent, right? I work very close with speech therapists, and working with children, I found myself mostly working with kids who had speech problems. And a lot of them were Spanish speaking. So I'm like, am I doing this because that's what job I'm doing now? Or am I doing this because it's what I want to do? And it was at that point where I'm like, okay, I think I need to change my career to fit what I really want to do. And so I left working with children, and I started working at mental health resources with, I was a care coordinator with CareLink New Mexico. And that was my first real taste of working face-to-face with people with mental illness.
Mm.
And I was like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Nice.
So I decided to go forth with my master's in counseling, and here I am.
Wonderful. So I'm going to rewind us a little bit. While in college and as you were progressing through your program, what did you learn about yourself?
I learned, and this might not even be a good thing, but I learned that I perform very well under pressure. And
No, that's a good thing.
Sometimes it was self-inflicted, if I'm being honest with you, because I would procrastinate till the very last minute to do something, but I would knock it out because my brain had no other option but to be laser focused on doing what I needed to do to finish. And it's unfortunately, it's one of those skills that I still have to this day. And most of the time it is still self-inflicted. I don't know how to get out of that.
It's a work in
who I
progress.
am at this point.
You can talk to us about the moment you graduated from college. What was that moment like for you and for your family?
I remember walking, because like you kind of go in the arena, you kind of go in like a U, I guess I could say. Like you enter from one point and then you walk down, but then you kind of do a U-turn.
Oh, right. Yeah.
To sit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm walking down and I've never seen so many people in one place. And I'm looking and I'm like, I'm seeing people I know and they're waving at me, and I know they're probably there to see quite a few people, but for me in that second, I'm like, they're looking at me and they're acknowledging me. Like
yeah.
I did this, And I had some friends that that came in from out of town to see me, and I graduating college was huge for me and for my family. I know it was. Jessica had already graduated. So that one, I think, was, since she was the first, it was probably a little bit more meaningful. But for me being the second child and just tenacious bossy Jazmin, me knowing that I did it and I did it well, it meant a lot for me. I'm sure for my family too, but it was an accomplishment that made me feel good.
Right on. So around this time you graduated, you have decided I need to pursue a master's to continue further education. I think a lot of students would say you chose more schooling to keep going. Talk to us about your motivation and your determination to do that.
I honestly, if it wasn't for my husband, Marcos, he really pushed me to do it, because it was one of those things where I know I'm going to, I just don't feel like it's the right time. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. That, and I mean, I struggle with financial insecurity and like financial anxiety, I think. But I think that comes from growing up in an immigrant household where funds are tight, and you're seeing my dad work such long hours to be able to provide for us. It kind of instilled a little bit of financial insecurity in me. I'm a huge saver, and any dollar I get, I'm like, I need to save this. I need to save this. But finally getting into a master's program, I was a little nervous because I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. And if I was going to pay for it, was it going to be through a student loan, or how are we going to make this work?
Right.
And it was a very last minute decision, if I'm being honest with you, because I started my master's program in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't know who told me that was I don't know who told me that was a good idea, but here I am.
The world typically doesn't plan for what we plan. It just does its thing.
It doesn't. And I remember it was such a last minute thing, and I really got encouraged by Marcos, and he's like, if you don't do it, those 3 years are going to pass anyway. So would you rather have a degree in 3 years, or would you rather still be thinking about going back to
Oh,
school.
that's a good frame. That's a good frame.
Yeah. And that really lit a little fire under me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. This was like 2 weeks out of the application deadline.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah. I'm telling you, I'm so good at procrastinating. So good at it. So I'm like getting my connections up, and I'm like, hey, would you be willing to write a letter of recommendation for me? I needed 3 of them. So I was like, I would love if you could write a letter of recommendation for me. In the meantime, I'm like getting all my transcripts together and doing my my cover letter to be able to apply. And I finally got it all in. And that was it. I just kind of left it up to
the
fate,
world,
I
the
guess.
universe. Yeah.
Yeah, I left it to the universe to see what was going to happen. And maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I get my acceptance email.
Congratulations. Wow.
And it was huge, because getting into a master's program isn't like getting into an undergrad program. It's
No, it's competitive.
It's not the same. These are programs that are competitive. These are competitive programs. And I really didn't think I was going to get in because I applied so late, but I got in, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening. This is where I'm supposed to be. So Marcos definitely pushed me to do it, and he really encouraged me. He's for real my number 1 fan, honestly.
That's awesome. That's
always
awesome.
pushing for me to do better and better myself.
So now you currently work for AmberCare. Can you tell the audience what that is and what does it do?
Yes. So AmberCare is a home care agency. We service a lot of people who are elderly, or disabled, or have some kind of qualified disability of sorts to need home care services. So I actually run 4 branches. I run Clovis, Las Vegas,
Whoa.
Carlsbad, and Hobbs. That was recently. I started with Clovis only, and I recently got promoted to the other 3 branches to run the other 3 branches. So that's been quite a bit of a change. I'm telling you, I'm always doing something. I don't have time for hobbies because school and work are my hobbies right now. But yeah, AmberCare is nationwide. There are other states that also provide the same services, and we have some branches also that provide hospice and home health. Unfortunately, in Clovis, we only have home care. So if someone is our goal is to keep people in the home and to keep them out of nursing homes, and keep them out of hospitals. So our caregivers are trained to help with activities of daily living, cooking, cleaning, running errands, reminders to take their medications, and things of that sort.
Awesome. Can you share with folks about how they can access either the website for AmberCare, or can they find it on social media?
Yeah, you can actually go to AmberCare.com. We are always hiring caregivers also. We provide all of the training needed for it, CPR and first aid as well. It is all paid for also. But yeah, if you go to AmberCare.com, it'll tell you a little bit more about the services that we provide, and also the locations where we have offices in the state of New Mexico.
What is your goal and vision for AmberCare now that you've been promoted to these new positions? What do you hope to accomplish?
I hope to bring consistency with all 4 branches. And at the end of the day, if we meet our goals, as long as you meet your goals, the way that you get there and what your journey looks like doesn't really matter, because you made it, you did it. And my style of leadership is probably different than the style of leadership that was there before. So my goal for my 4 branches in particular is just to have consistency of what I expect in my staff members and what I expect in the results that that we show.
Jazmin, what do you like most about your role in AmberCare?
Honestly, I love the people that I work with. kind of getting back to the imposter syndrome, I had never been in a position where people were answering to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting this job where I'm the boss, I hate saying that. I hate saying that to people, like I'm
I think
boss.
for millennials, it's like an irk word for us.
It's
like,
weird.
Don't
It's
call
weird.
me the
I don't
boss.
like it. I don't like it. I don't like it, not one bit.
Yeah.
And I'm also considering I'm pretty young. I think I am the second youngest person in my office, and there's 7 of us.
Wow.
So running the place, it was really difficult for me because I'm like, how am I going to get anyone to listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think back and I'm like, no, I'm gonna make them listen to me. Not in that way. Like I'm not one of those people who rule with an iron fist. You're gonna listen to me.
Right.
No, I do it in a way where I have to gain their trust, right? So I definitely wasn't in a rush for them to respect me right away. I definitely had to earn their trust and earn their respect and show them that even though I was young, I had knowledge behind me. I just felt like an imposter leading people because I had never had to do that before.
Mm-hmm.
So learning the role compared to where I was then to where I am now, I am just so much more confident in my ability. I mean, enough for me to absorb 3 other branches. I was scared to take on one. Now I have 4.
There you are.
And here
yes.
I am. Now I have 4. And I just really enjoy the people that I work with. And my boss is she's one of my biggest fans too, honestly. Like she is just always pushing me to be the best that I can be and really follow my goals. Like I was telling you earlier, I started my internship this year, and that takes time away from my job.
Yeah.
Every Thursday I'm on site. And
mm-hmm.
I kind of told her that at the very beginning. I said, this is probably where life is going to lead me at some point. So once I get to internship and I have to step back a little bit, I'll let you know. So instead of stepping back, I did the complete opposite and I just took on 3 more branches.
Wow.
That was so easy. But once I got to that point where I'm like, okay, internship is starting. This is what you should expect. She is just always so positive. Her name is Rosa. She's from Roswell, and having that in the workplace, having someone above you in the workplace, just be cheering you on that hard and to give you that space to be able to do all of your personal stuff along with, your professional stuff,
right,
is really unheard of. It's very unheard of. She just gives me so much room to be able to expand my horizons. As long as I'm getting my work done and doing it well, then I can take a little time to focus on my internship and my school. And that's huge. That's
absolutely
huge. It's such a privilege to have. Such a privilege.
Jazmin, thinking ahead, what do you see yourself doing 5 to 10 years from now?
I'm going to be getting my PhD.
I still see it.
I'm going to do it either PhD or PsyD. I'm not sure which. It kind of depends where we're at. Like maybe we're not living in Clovis anymore. I don't know. Depending on where we live. But I'm going to do it.
Wonderful.
I'm going to do it. Yeah, for sure.
Are there any mentors, teachers, or advisors you would like to recognize on this podcast?
Ooh, number 1 is his name's Don Argenbright. He was my art teacher in high school. And he is the coolest dude, man. He's so dang cool. And I remember my senior year, one of my my courses, I guess, was a teacher's aide. Mm-hmm. And I got to be his teacher's aide.
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
So I would like clean the art room or get supplies ready when he would have his classes with the elementary students. And he was just such a cool guy. We had a similar taste in music too. So mm-hmm. And he just had like this dry, sarcastic sense of humor that I really enjoy. He was one of those teachers that kind of helped me believe that I could still be a professional and be myself. And that's something that I really, really lean on at work too, because yes, we are a professional setting, but I like to have fun and I like to laugh and I like to make jokes. And he was kind of one of the first people that showed me that you could do both.
Yeah.
And still be successful. So Donna Argenbright, number one guy. Rosie Rubio is another one. She is actually the one who gave me my first postgraduate job with Tobosa in Roswell. She's just always believed in me. And coming from a small town, she is the aunt of Jessica's husband.
Mm-hmm.
So, growing up, everyone kind of knows everybody, right? And I've just always really looked up to her because she is another woman who is a Latina and made it. So I've always really looked up to her in that sense. I'm like, Rosie's awesome, and I want to be like her. I want to be a Rosie one day, and here I am leading 4 offices.
There you go.
like a Rosie Rubio.
There you go.
Her and I also had a clinical supervisor when I was a care coordinator. Her name was Shasta Raul, and Shasta was another one of those people who just really believed in me. And she also had the same taste in music as I did, so we got to kind of bond over that too. But she always made me feel like I had bigger things to get.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm pursuing the same license that she has, I think that that's maybe where I was supposed to be. Like she was one of those people who, I guess, I got not encouragement, but I'm trying to think of the right word I'm looking for. Inspiration. She inspired me to go after the same license, basically.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
That's great. Anybody else?
Trying to think. I already mentioned Rosa. She's more of a professional inspiration because she's a machine. She is a machine. She just does not stop.
Really?
Yes.
Wow,
and
that's dedication.
When I say she's dedicated, I've told her, I'm like, Rosa, I can't do what you do. I can't do what you do, man. You just go and go and go, and you do not stop. But yeah, right at the top of my head, those are probably the ones who had. Those are probably the professional people who had the biggest impacts on me.
Right on. What is something you would like to share with TRIO professionals? Say you had TRIO professionals listening to you in a virtual setting, and you were able to speak to hundreds upon thousands of TRIO professionals. What is one thing you would like to say to them?
When you say TRIO professionals, do you mean like
people
students?
From Talent Search, the folks that run Talent Search.
Oh, the folks that run it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Student Support Services, McNair. Yeah, all of those.
You have, or maybe you do have an idea, but the impact that you guys make on your students' lives is remarkable. And maybe in the moment you might not think it. Maybe it's one of those days where you're just struggling to get through. You're just struggling to get through the end of the day, or dealing with difficult students. But you're making an impact, and you're helping them gain the skills that they need to be successful in school. Because without that little bit of experience and I guess just just firsthand knowledge of what college is going to be like. You would be very surprised how unprepared a lot of students are for what college is really like in real life. So
absolutely,
to have that experience is a privilege.
Awesome. What advice do you have for TRIO students at the pre-college or college level?
Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going, man. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop. And don't let other people what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite of encourage.
Discourage?
Discourage. Well, duh, right? Discourage.
We'll edit that post-production.
Thinking too hard.
You are hardcore thinking. I can see it.
Thinking way too hard. Don't let people discourage you from what you want to do, because maybe they don't think it's something that they would want to do, but you're not them and they're not you. So Absolutely. Do what you want.
Absolutely. What is one word you would use to describe yourself now? So we went from other people describing you, seeing how you perform and function, but now did you arrive at a word you would say, this best describes me?
I'm going to say tenacious.
Tenacious.
I've learned that I have the tenacity to get things done. Even if I leave them to the last minute, I'm going to get it done.
So that'll be the title of the podcast.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Tenacious. I like that. Tenacious.
What is something that you're currently watching, reading, or listening to?
I am reading the Encyclopedia of Counseling.
Ooh.
Big purple book. It's actually a tutorial for the National Counseling Examination.
Whoa.
You have to pass that exam in order to get your license to practice.
Wow.
And so it's one of those things where I have to do it. It's part of my study guide. But Encyclopedia of Counseling, that's my book right now.
Jazmin pulled out this big book, very thick. It looks like purple.
It's almost 2 inches thick.
Almost 2 inches thick. So, all right.
And I listen to morbid true crime podcasts.
Right on.
They're awesome. It is a woman-led true crime podcast, and they're very smart. They're very funny and sarcastic, and they tell the stories of victims in a very just very heartfelt, and they do a lot of justice to some of the victims that they talk about. But yeah, reading psychology stuff and listening to true crime stuff.
So Jazmin, it has been a true pleasure to speak with you today about your TRIO journey, your educational journey. We should definitely have you on the podcast again.
Oh, thanks. I would love to do it again, honestly.
So we do have a tradition on the Let's Talk TRIO podcast where we have the guests sign off. Care to do the honors?
Sure. Hi, this is Jazmin Trujillo, and I'm the agency director for AmberCare in Clovis, Carlsbad, Hobbs, and Las Vegas, New Mexico. I am a Gear Up and TRIO Upward Bound alum from ENMU-Roswell and ENMU-Portales. TRIO works. Be tenacious, be you.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a TRIO program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk TRIO. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk TRIO. We want to get your story to the public.
That was our guest, Jazmin Trujillo from the ENMU-Roswell TRIO Upward Bound program. Jazmin, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your TRIO story. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, TrioJoblist.com, Jaded Electronics, and Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base patron level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor via Patreon by placing an ad on the podcast. For $100 a month, we will run your ad for every episode we publish in the sponsored month. Or you can become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. The handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. One more time, it's @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. This episode was recorded Sunday, June 25th, 2023. Remember to always use your right to vote. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.